Hello, the World Wide Web, and welcome to the third episode of
80-Bit Podsmash.
We're your hosts, Penguin and Termite. This is where gaming goes to grab a beer.
Cheers.
Now, I would toast you, but the microphone would pick it up, and it would be uncomfortable for everyone listening.
I don't think that... Let's do it. Cheers.
Cheers! Woo!
There it is.
Look at that spike on the
look at
audio. That's going to be a hefty clink.
How you doing tonight, Dan?
I'm doing well. As always, I assign each episode a different kind of ship because of my mistake on the first episode. So this episode is going to be our barge episode.
A barge?
A barge, yes.
All right.
Ship that is used to carry cargo and goods. A definition that I looked up 5 minutes ago.
And it's big and slow.
Yep, big and slow.
It gets it going, though.
But this isn't going to be slow. This is going to get it going and carry all of your goods and merchandise to great places.
Woohoo!
All right. How's it going today?
I'm
what's
exhausted.
New? Me too. We
Yeah.
stayed up all night watching Game of Thrones.
We did.
So
The season finale happened, just to give you guys a frame of reference of time. Maybe.
totally dating this episode.
Yep. It happens. So, yeah, we're just tired.
Mm-hmm. But it was a good episode. Some good stuff happened.
Yeah. We can't spoiler cast this, can we? We can't talk about spoilers. Someone could be driving in their car and get mad and...
Okay, so by the time this comes out, though, it's going to be like several months after the season.
So if they haven't
is
caught
over.
up?
So if they haven't caught up, maybe it's on them. Why don't we say, like, spoiler alert, so, like, skip ahead maybe a few?
Yeah, and just wait.
But I guess if they're driving...
You can't really do that without dying.
Okay, whatever. Spoiler alert, listen at your own risk. If you haven't caught up on Game of Thrones at this point, we apologize, but... Get it together, guys. Come on.
I mean, come on.
It's Game of Thrones.
Come on.
Come on. Chekhov's gun. Do you know what Chekhov's gun is?
No.
Chekhov's gun is a storytelling principle where if you introduce a gun in the first act of the play, then the gun has to go off by the last act of the play.
Right.
And I've been saying forever, the wall is a Chekhov's gun. Tell me there's a big wall that keeps the zombies and the ice beasts out, and I tell you that wall's coming down by the end of the series.
It has to.
And that's what just happened.
All right.
So I was pumped. I was like, bring it down, bring it down.
Like Jericho?
Yeah, bring that wall down like Jericho, except I don't think the Israelites...
For all you wrestling fans out there, I know you're singing the song. Break the wall down! It's happening.
Like I say, I don't think the Israelites had a ice breath fiery blue fire dragon.
No, they just stormed around and stomped on the ground.
They had the Ark of the
screamed.
Covenant, I guess, which
And
was
they blew their horns and trumpets and stomped on the ground and stuff.
But
Or if you're a wrestler, you just busted through it.
But it was pretty cool. I really enjoyed it. I've been waiting for that to happen for, I guess, 7 seasons now, or whatever.
Yeah,
so it was good. I was disappointed they didn't do Clegane Bowl.
Yep,
And
that
we have
passes
to
by.
wait till 2019, apparently.
Is that when it's airing?
Yeah, they're skipping a year.
Jeez.
So I'm like crossing my fingers and hoping that Winds of Winter comes out, the book, next year, so that I can have some Game of Thrones fix, some
Yeah, that'll probably
Westeros fix.
I feel that. But we might also get a little Westworld-iness.
Westworld, yeah, but Westworld
Little
doesn't come out
Stranger
until next
Things.
year.
Yeah,
Because we have Stranger Things this fall. They're just spreading it out for me.
Well, if Westworld's 2018, there's your hit until 2019. You just get one show.
That's true. I can watch Walking Dead, too. Walking Dead's pretty consistent.
Ooh!
It's not as good, but...
There's also this new Movie Pass thing that came out that the internet is all up in arms about that you should subscribe to, so you and I can go see movies randomly when my wife is doing schoolwork and my son's asleep.
Why don't you tell our audience members about Movie Pass? It's starting to sound like a commercial. We promise...
Well, the funny part is it's probably going to be bankrupt by the time this thing comes out, because what I thought was how they were making money isn't true at all. But we pay $10 a month, and Movie Pass passes the money on to Hollywood at their loss to our $10 a month. We can go see 30 movies in a month.
Yeah.
One movie per day. And we can rack up a bill of whatever 12 times 30 is, $360 a month if we were to see a movie every day. Now they're hoping the gym model where like people subscribe and don't go and don't use it. That's what they're hoping for.
Only imagine the only way they'd be able to make money.
Right. So AMC was like causing this big stink about not wanting to support Movie Pass and looking around ways to circumvent the thing. Movie Pass sends you a MasterCard. So the theater doesn't care. They don't see or know if you're a Movie Pass holder or not. They just see a MasterCard hit their system, and then that's how the money goes to them.
Okay.
And yeah. So Movie Pass ends up forking up the bill. So I thought theaters would have to buy in. Like, if you were a theater, you'd have to go to Movie Pass and pitch to them, hey, I want to support your customers. I want your customers in my theater because they're going to buy popcorns and concessions, and I'm going to make money. Apparently that's not the case at all. Otherwise, AMC wouldn't be so all up in arms about this thing.
Yeah.
AMC is actually scared that their movie pass model will cheapen the value of movies and actually hurt the industry permanently. That's actually a thing. Like, I don't know why AMC cares. Again, they're getting customers flooding through their doors.
And they don't make money off of customers. They make money off of or they don't make money off of tickets. I mean, they make money off of concessions.
Exactly. So I don't understand.
Make a lot of sense to me.
Right. But it seems like AMC is trying to pull the noble movie-going experience.
Yeah, okay.
Like,
the movie-going experience right now, the way things currently are, is garbage. The movie-going experience is me dropping $25 for me and my wife just to go see a movie and not get popcorn and have to smell popcorn and not get a soda because I can't afford a soda and popcorn after buying the tickets. So you really want me to get popcorn and sodas, then you need to make the tickets cheaper. You really want me to enjoy the movie-going experience, you got to make the experience cheaper because right now it's going the way of good old-fashioned straight theater, and it's dying.
And with the advent of large-screen TVs with 4K in the living room and surround sound systems being in a box with sound bars.
Yeah, and me paying the same amount for one movie ticket a month to have unlimited Netflix, like, I'm sorry, the movie-going experience isn't great. Plus, movies aren't really that quality anymore. They're all being made for sales over in China.
Yeah.
All the best actors and best directors are starting to flood towards television, like HBO and Netflix, because they're actually producing quality original content. As opposed to movies, which are just rehashing the same ideas that we had in the 80s.
Were you just trying to talk me out of this MoviePass thing?
No. I'm trying to say MoviePass is intriguing to me in the first place because they are finally at least trying to do something to make the movie-going experience more affordable for those of us who... I love going to see movies. I love getting a popcorn and getting a soda and watching a movie and just pigging out. Like, that's a great experience, but I haven't been able to do that in its entirety. Yeah. And I have to limit the amount of movies. This summer I had to limit my amount of movies to, like, 3... that I was definitely going to see, one of which was garbage. Dark Tower, don't want to talk about it. But I would love to have gotten popcorn and a soda, and I would love to have seen more movies. And, I left room for a few surprises, like Wonder Woman I wasn't expecting to go see. Yeah. And I loved it, so I was very glad that I ended up going to see Wonder Woman and making room in our budget for it. But I would love to go see more movies, because I'm interested in movies, and I want to support movies. I want to support more original movies like Baby Driver, and I would have loved to have supported Valerian and Lost Planets, because it was at least really good. Something new. It was at least something different.
It did not review well. You guys are judging me as I say, oh, that looks good. And I'm sure the whole way.
But exactly, I didn't even get a chance to see it and try it because it's too expensive. Yeah. And I would love to, I don't care if a movie's crap. I want to support the at least making of at least trying new ideas. Like, what was the other really big sci-fi that bombed recently? It was the one that was made by the guys who made The Matrix. It had Mila Kunis, Channing Tatum.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, it was garbage from what I heard. Jupiter Ascending, that's what it was. Yep. Yeah, garbage from what I heard, but I wanted to support it anyways just because it was in a new original sci-fi. Right. And we haven't had one of those.
MoviePass grants you the ability to, like, test that out. Like, I have a free night. It doesn't cost me anything. I already spent my $10. I'm going to go get it. And I'm looking forward to seeing Ragnarok. My wife doesn't want to see that. So if I just go on release day or after, I don't need to get advanced tickets. I don't have to be on it. Because MoviePass won't let you buy advanced tickets. Yep. They won't let you do 3D or IMAX. So we just show up after release day during a matinee or whatever, or in the evening, and it doesn't cost me a dime other than the $10 I spent already.
Well, and what you were telling me earlier, or last time you and I talked about this, the one thing that MoviePass sounds like is a terrible idea is supposedly you can only get one MoviePass per household, which means I'm assuming that
I didn't see that recently. I thought that originally because their terms of service or whatever kind of said that, but now it seems like it's one per smartphone.
That's better because then me and my wife can get movie passes.
The whole
you and your wife
system
can get movie
works
passes.
with your smartphone. You have to use their app to order.
See, and everybody has their own individual smartphone. Right. So the only people that would potentially hurt is families who have kids, but kids already get a fairly discounted rate. Young kids. And then as they get older, they're going to eventually get smartphones anyways. So, yeah, I can see that working a lot better. Because when you originally pitched it to me, it was one per household. And I was like, that's stupid. You can't go on dates anymore. Like, it's so anti-spouse. Like, anti-marriage. Yeah. Get out of here. Get out of here with your anti-marriage. But, cool. Well, we can move on now and talk about our next segment, which is...
downloadable content.
DLC.
Usually we do rap horns. Like every episode we've been doing, for some reason those always pop up around DLC announcement.
DLC. We need.
It will be different every time.
One of these days,
I've said that before in previous
episodes.
Someday
maybe we'll get like a nice audio for it that we can edit in there.
That's no fun. They just do it on a whim.
We'll do it ourselves. Penguin and Termite being best friends.
Solving the mysteries, the fun never ends.
Yay!
That's enough singing for this podcast.
All right, so DLC today, I was inspired by the Cracked podcast, which is a podcast I listen to. So I'm stealing this from them, but in return, I'll say you guys should listen to the Cracked podcast. It's awesome. It's great. I love Cracked.com and what they do. Funny guys. Always talk about some interesting stuff. But they had an episode recently. They recorded live with some other comedians, and they talked. Their whole topic was, what video game universe would you want to live in? If you could live in any video game universe, the only stipulation is you're not the hero. You're not Crash Bandicoot. You're just some random NPC. You're some random dude. You're just a lowly schmuck, and you live in this universe. So I'll give you some time to think while I give you my answer, because obviously I've had more time to think about this, and I listened to the episode. And I know it sounds cliche, but again, keep in mind, I'm not the hero. I'm not a hero. I'm just a regular dude. But I would actually love to live in the World of Warcraft, in Azeroth. The reason is this. Yes, there's a apocalyptic crisis that happens once every 2 years or so. But despite that, there's always a thriving economy. Always there's tons of goods and services going in and out of this, Stormwind or Orgrimmar, depending on which city you live in. There's all these heroes that are flooding the streets who, even if something does attack Stormwind, they jump on it because they're looking for loot. And they're looking to do some achievement or something. So there's always people just aplenty around to save you. And who's the person that's going to take their repair bill and repair their gear for them? It clearly doesn't look like it's terribly difficult to repair gear in that world, because every single little shop owner who's just standing around has the ability to repair gear and charges 50, 60, 70 gold for it. And it looks like the food is cheap. You can get food aplenty for like half a silver. So never go hungry. You always have people around to save you. Some big crisis happens, but that just gives more to talk about and more to think about and more to discuss on our podcast, the Azeroth version of our podcast. So I think it would actually be a pretty neat place to just be a random person, be a little Stormwind NPC.
All right.
Or run the auction house. I don't know, whatever.
I'm sure you'd find some theatrical outlet for yourself.
For sure.
Somehow.
Yeah. There's tons of costumes, can transmogrify, so,
polymorph yourself into a sheep.
Yeah, definitely.
Bah.
So, or maybe, again, there might not be, I'm in information technology, and even though there's no computers there, I'm sure there's, technical details about spellcasting. Maybe I could go teach magic. Teach basic magic. Be a little mage trainer. Be the mage trainer up in the mage tower.
What is that area called?
Stormwind?
No, that area of Stormwind.
The Mage Quarter?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, so World of Warcraft, live in Azeroth. I'm digging it.
All right. I would like to live in Zanarkand from Final Fantasy X.
Okay.
It is a futuristic sci-fi kind of town with, blitzball as their main sport.
I was going to say, blitzball.
How awesome would it be to go to a bar
blitzball.
And kick back some drinks, hang out with the dudes, watching blitzball.
But
and then they go to live games with the water sphere in the middle.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that'd be awesome. So it just seems like an awesome place to be. And I like the city life anyway. It's appealing to me. So you'd be in the heart of all the activity, everything that's going on, and
But aren't you all dead?
I don't remember the details of Final Fantasy X's plot, other than Yuna's pilgrimage and what that ended with. I don't remember the.
I guess Sin would be a good way to go. Giant monster whale that just kind of destroys everything.
Right, and there was that beach town that
vaporized.
Waka's from. Yeah, and that was awesome too.
Wait, so you'd want to live in the whole Final Fantasy X universe, not just?
Well, if I was going to live in the 10 universe, to answer your question, Final Fantasy X's universe would be where I'd live, specifically Zanarkand. I would have a place to live there, but I would travel around and see all the other places too.
Okay, yeah, and you get to hang around with those Kimahri types. Just seem awesome.
They do.
Yeah.
See Aaron too. I'd like to meet him. He's pretty cool.
Cool. And isn't there? No, they didn't have a card game because they replaced it with Blitzball. Yeah. Okay. Yep. I remember the card game in Final Fantasy VIII was amazing.
Was
almost Gwent-worthy. Not quite.
I hate Gwent. But we're not going to talk about that. That game sucked.
Yeah, no Gwent.
That game made me so angry.
Cool. Well, we want to hear what you guys think. What universe would you want to live in? Why? But again, keep in mind, you're not the Master Chief. You're not Mario. You're not Link. You're just some random schmuck.
Yep.
Sitting around. What would you want to... What beautiful sights would you want to take in? How would you provide for yourself? go ahead and give us those details in your comments. Send us an email. Get in contact
Why don't we
with
do
us.
the converse and talk about what place we would not ever want to live in?
Okay, sure. Yeah, we can do that.
I'm going to start with that. I'm going to say Midgar from Final Fantasy VII. That place is a dump hole. And living under what Barrett called the pizza plate.
Yep.
And how many F words he used to describe that? It's a slum. It's smelly. It's completely just overrun by a tyrannical government that's selfish and has none of the people's interest in mind. Everyone's struggling to make ends meet. But Cloud and a big train, I can see where it would be appealing to some. But if you're not the main hero trying to make a difference and bring Shinra down, you're not having a good time.
No. There's a lot of games, universes that would suck to live in. It would suck to live in Halo universe.
Really?
Yeah, I think so. Just as a random person.
Yeah.
You're not part of the if you're not part of the military, if you're not actively involved in the stuff going on, if you're just some random person, like, how many, I don't even know the later games, but I know that, like, they're a multi-planetary society by that point.
Yep.
But by Halo 2, the only planet left is Earth. So the chances, if Earth's population can currently hold 7 billion and we become interplanetary, then we can theoretically double and triple the size of human population. So the chances that your planet got blown up and you're dead, very, very dead, or you maybe escaped back to Earth, the one surviving planet, but now it's overpopulated because you have double, triple, potentially.
And it's under attack by the Covenant.
And it's under attack by the Covenant. Yeah, the chances that your planet's blown up or you're living on a crazy overpopulated Earth are like, 1 in 7 or however many planets they had colonized at that point. So, yeah.
That would not be good.
I don't think that would be very fun. It'd be like it'd be like living in the Attack on Titan
I still
city.
need to see that.
Yeah, all of humanity's condensed to one single city that's got walls around it, and every time the Titans break through one of the walls, they have to go, all those people have to evacuate into, deeper into one of the walls. So, yeah, the same thing happens. It's just overpopulation. Most of them starve to death. And, like, at least if I'm going to die, I think I would rather die with my planet blowing up, because at least then you get to go out in a blaze of glory. Starving slowly on Earth.
Yeah, it would be a
there's
slow, painful death.
Plasma lasers and stuff going on would be really, really lame. So, no Halo for me.
Yeah.
Nope.
I feel that.
Yeah. Just upload my consciousness into an AI. At that point, live out my life.
You'd have a crush on Cortana, wouldn't you?
Who doesn't have a crush on Cortana? Okay, so that's DLC for the day.
We're going to move you guys into our topic for the show. We're going to be talking about one of my favorite and most passionate topics to talk about, and that is retro gaming.
Yep.
Specifically, discussing, arguing, debating, bouncing it off of you, what or what doesn't make a game timeless.
Yeah.
And what does timelessness even mean?
Yeah, or more
defining that.
More perhaps appropriately trying to answer that question, can a game or anything really be considered timeless? And what does timelessness mean? So, yeah, we're gonna start talking about those things. So, Danny, what do you define timelessness as?
My definition of timeless is if looking at a video game as if it were to be released today, how would it be received? So take Metroid for the Nintendo, and it's a brand new game. It comes out this Tuesday on PlayStation 4, Nintendo Switch, Xbox One, and PC. How would it be received? Would it be rated as good as we have perceived it to be in our nostalgia? That's timelessness.
Right, so you kind of contrast timelessness with nostalgia and say that a timeless game it's received well and received highly and reviewed highly, despite the fact that, let me start over. It's received well or highly whether or not it has the nostalgia at play.
Right.
So, like, the game could come out today, and, without the rose-colored lenses of nostalgia, we would see it as a good game, is what you define timelessness as. And
more objective than nostalgia.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so I kind of disagree. I think that, well, I think your definition is great. I kind of disagree. I don't really think that a game can be considered timeless. I think that nostalgia is always going to come into play. That's kind of the position that I took as we originally began discussing this episode and researching it.
I also think that, and this kind of supports your argument, why there's a hole in my definition in that your nostalgia is like a moving target, or at least the objective rating of how a game is received is a moving target, because what could be a timeless game today from the 80s might not be timeless in 10 years as the gaming industry moves forward.
Yep, yeah.
And technology advances, and then all of a sudden all of Nintendo titles are horrible.
Yeah, and if it's not timeless, if when you say as time goes on, it's not timeless anymore, that's against the very definition of timelessness.
I was giving you that ammo to put a hole in my argument.
Yeah, exactly. I would say that timelessness timelessness, the idea of someone finding something timeless, can be fairly subjective. But we're not going to spend a long time discussing that because just like our art episode, we could go back and forth on that forever. I will support your definition and simply say, because of the subjectivity of timelessness and how nostalgia affects a game, I would say that if you could say that most people would like it, then you might be able to say it's timeless.
I'm going to add to my definition of one more kind of not caveat, but something to a paradigm, something to hold standards to, something that kind of defines what timelessness looks like in our gaming culture today, and that's how indie titles are coming out. Mm-hmm. So indie titles are embracing the retro theme, the retro feel, retro sounds of our games from the 80s, early 90s, and they're coming out today and they're hits. Like, the indie gaming movement has taken off like crazy, and there is a price point, like cheap, low risk, low barrier of entry of $5 to $15 to get a game like Axiom Verge or Shovel Knight. Like, these are games I haven't played yet, but I'd love to, and they take that old Metroidvania style mechanics from the old classics of Metroid and Castlevania, and they take the graphics from the NES, like Mega Man times, and add a cool co-op game, and they're brand new, and there's an amiibo made for them, and they're out there, they're supported, they're making money, and so the fact that that's happening is kind of indicative that those games are timeless. Games like them are timeless.
Mm-hmm. I wonder how much of that has to do, though, with you and I discussed something a few weeks ago where games like that are marketed to us. They're not marketed to kids.
That's true.
But the games that inspired those games were marketed as well to us when we were kids.
Right.
So really, they are the retro gaming comeback, if you will, as it inspires the indie movement, seems to be rooted in a sense of nostalgia.
Good point.
But I will say, we discussed at one point that as a lot of games get, you look back at them and you say, oh, those graphics are awful. I think the 2D side scroller, which is the typical, that's the limitation at the time was that's all you could do. They're kind of making a cool comeback with what I would describe as HD graphics, and the example that I really liked was Cuphead.
Oh yeah, Cuphead looks awesome.
Yeah, so what they're doing
is 1950s cartoon.
Yeah, exactly. What they're doing is, they're no longer limited by 8-bit, 16-bit capabilities, and now they're able to do, like I said, sort of an HD look that's highly stylized to make the cartoony 2D limitation, self-imposed limitation, more authentic and cool. So I thought that was a cool example.
Sonic Mania just came out too.
Oh yeah,
and they did a whole lot to improve the animations are smoother, and like everything looks nicer just a little bit, but it still looks like Sega Genesis.
Yeah.
So I would say that Sonic the Hedgehog for the Sega Genesis would be a timeless game. I can pick it up today and enjoy it, but they're playing on that by coming out with a new title that's like enhanced, like you were saying. It's like HDified.
Yeah, and I do like, Crash Bandicoot is another great example. I wasn't a huge Crash Bandicoot fan, but I appreciate, I didn't have a PlayStation, but I had so many friends who loved that game, and that style of, I think it goes to show that you and I disagreed a lot on the point of like a lot of those more 3D games, such as Ocarina of Time.
I do not think Ocarina of Time is timeless.
Which, if we're going by the definition, if we're going by the caveat of as long as most people think it's timeless, then I would think that most people would disagree with you. But that's fine. Again, that's kind of your subjective thought.
I know that it's a minority
into play, but
opinion.
But the kind of gameplay and the story of Zelda kind of makes it timeless, I think, to most people. And if they released an HD re-release or like those, I'm sure you've seen online those videos where people have just taken single levels and run it through
Unreal 4.
Yeah, exactly. So if they were to do that in the same way they did Crash Bandicoot.
Right. And I was about to say, like, the original Crash Bandicoots did not age well. They're they're like blocky, and the textures are super low res, and the animations are janky compared to today's standards. So I would even argue that the original Crash Bandicoots are not timeless at all, and they needed a remake in order to make them relevant again.
Yeah, so I think that what we find as we discuss this is that there are certain elements to a game that might make it timeless, but certain elements that might make it not timeless. So what do you think are the kind of various different things within a video game that might make it timeless or might make it, its success subject to nostalgia.
I want to break it down into like 3 kind of categories.
Okay.
One category would be the graphics. The other part would be the mechanics of the control. And the third part would be like the menus and the UIs or the ability to change in settings, right?
Would you include story possibly as?
So that's the only thing you can't really, that is actually by its nature completely timeless in everything.
Yeah,
in
okay.
every medium, whether it's a music CD, if it's a book, if it's a movie, if it's a video game, regardless of how it's presented to you, at its core, it's a story, it's someone sharing an emotion or something of their own lives with you, that is timeless.
Yeah, so regardless...
You can't put like, oh, that's so dated.
Mm-hmm.
The style in which they tell it can totally be dated. Mm-hmm. But the story itself, you can't really...
Okay, so you're saying that like the video game is just the way of telling the story.
Right.
And that could be subject to not being timeless, losing its timelessness. But the story itself is immutable, which is why you would say, oh yeah, Zelda's still an amazing experience because of the story, and a timeless experience because of the story, but the delivery method of that story
so
can bring you out of it.
I'm sitting in a room full of retro titles. I have a library of Nintendo 64 games, PlayStation 2, Sega, etc. It's all like here, and mostly. No, I wouldn't say all. The good stuff's here, but I'm missing a lot. So anyway, I digress. I fired up Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time, and I didn't enjoy it anymore. It just felt janky. The combat was not to the smoothness and standard of it today. The graphics were kind of clippy. The textures were low res. None of it looked as realistic or as cool as I remember it, and it just doesn't hold up. So that's part of that's of my 3 things. The graphics are totally dated and do not make sense. Mechanically, it's a little bit clunkier than modern titles are. Jumping around, like the lock on and like sidestepping, revolutionary for its time. Freaking awesome for 1996. But today, now we have crazy 60 frames per second, like flying upside down, motion controls, aiming, like crazy mechanics that they've added to games. Whereas just the simple lock on, jump to the left, right, forward, or backwards limitation to combat, and then having to like fire a bow and aim with the joystick. It's completely juxtapositioned with like running around. None of it is smooth, and it requires you to actually like stop and think about what you're doing. Whereas modern games, it's very intuitive. So we've gotten a lot farther. So that blocked again. So in graphics and in mechanics, climbing is really slow.
As a side note, I'll say I have the movement of Ocarina of Time basically down to a T.
Well, yeah, because of our experience.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's one side note. I think most people getting Link through the world is part of the experience for them because they've memorized every... Yeah, I know exactly how many rolls... Not exactly, but I know how many rolls it takes to get from Kakiri Forest to Hyrule Castle. And I can do it before the sun goes down the first day.
Yep.
But yeah, sorry.
That was just me picking apart why I thought Ocarina of Time was not very timeless.
So what's a game that you would contrast then to one that those same things, graphics, mechanics, and
Super Mario Brothers 3.
Okay.
So Super Mario Brothers 3 is very graphically pleasing. It's aesthetically pleasing. Sorry.
Despite the limitations of the time.
Right. It's colorful. It works. You can see it. The mechanics are flawless. The platforming is spotless. There's no clipping. You don't fall through floors. You don't accidentally hit stuff you're not supposed to be hitting. The hitboxes are all perfect and lined up. The control is responsive. There is no menu. It's that simple. Like you can buy or you can collect items that you can then use in the main map, in the main world.
Okay.
And so you have like that cycle. You just press B and cycle through your items and use them and then go in. So it's very simplistic. It's very easy to learn. It's very easy to pick up. And that's not, I know, part of my timelessness description, but I'm just going with the mechanics. Yeah, so graphically it makes sense. Mechanically it makes sense, and with the UI it's still good today.
Yeah, okay. I can see that.
And the music's awesome too.
Cool.
And I feel like if I were to bring my 2-year-old son down and sit him down and play Mario 3, which I may have done already, he'll go Mario and try to play it and not really be hindered by things. If you bring Ocarina of Time to someone who's played Minecraft, they'd be like, this Minecraft is so much smoother and better, and I can do so much more. Why would I be so limited to this jankiness? And I use Minecraft as an example because the graphics is exactly like blocky and horribly low-resolution textures. But it's meant to be. It's
purposeful,
kind of... Yeah, it's purposeful, right. So I'm just saying, like, today's kids wouldn't appreciate Ocarina of Time, but they would love Mario 3.
I wonder, do you think that a game having subsequent titles, such as Ocarina of Time, such as Zelda, the Zelda franchise, or even the Halo franchise, another great example. Do you think subsequent titles increases the chances of a game losing its timelessness?
Kind of, yeah. Because every time you come out with a new iteration of it, they improve upon it, and then it makes the first one look worse. And there's the point. Like, you have to do remasters or HD upgrades and stuff to kind of make the old ones feel relevant again.
Yeah. I do think that, it kind of depends on your personality as to how you react, because a lot of people don't like the improvements, and a lot of people think sometimes the improvements remove, what made the experience great in the first place. So... Then again, I know there's lots of Pokemon fans out there who...
Red and Blue.
Red and Blue.
They're
can't
so
go back and play Red and Blue
again.
Can't.
Yeah. They're not timeless at all.
Yeah.
Like, they needed to be remade.
Yeah.
And I'm glad they did. But for nostalgia factor, they're still fun. Like, they just came out on the 3DS Virtual Console, 6 months ago. And sure enough, I bought Red, and I'm playing it right now.
Yeah. But it makes me wonder, when you say that, oh yeah, a kid could just pick up Mario and play it. The kid's not going to pick up Mario on his own. Might not pick up Mario on his own.
It's true, he wouldn't have
that
exposure.
makes me wonder, does that, if your 2-year-old son is playing Mario, he's probably playing it because you are encouraging him to play it, and that's sort of secondhand nostalgia, if you will.
Yeah.
I wonder how much of that secondhand nostalgia doesn't change the fact that he still might enjoy it, probably will enjoy it.
Yep.
Which goes as a testament to how the game goes. But I wonder if a kid, let's say a 5-year-old kid, someone a little bit older, but old enough to maybe browse through a menu on their own and pick a game on their own that they want to play. Do you think that if they had never been exposed to Mario before, they would pick it on the very, nature of its standalone
If you
value?
looked at it in the store and saw some screenshots, I guess it would depend on the curation and how they market it. Like if Nintendo's Virtual Console or however you stumble upon it, which it would kind of be on the marketing of the company. Like you see a screenshot of the original Halo, you're not playing that. Like, no, I can go get... I don't even know what the latest shooter is right now because I haven't followed shooters. I think
latest shooter?
The latest, first-person shooter, the prettiest one. Prey just came out. They showed off some stuff at E3 with Wolfenstein 2. Looks crazy good and realistic. That new Metro game looks good.
Yeah, I was going to say, apparently... Destiny on the PC is supposed to be
Destiny
really,
2.
really good looking.
Right,
yeah.
so if you have that ingrained in as your 10, 15-year-old kid and that's what you're used to, and you look at a screenshot from Halo, you're never playing that game. You're not going to oh, that looks good.
I've always said before, when I have kids, I want to start them off on the stuff that I started off on, and that's a great and lofty goal, but I wonder how much, all it's going to take is them to go over to their friend's house one time and see, because that kid might have, their parents might have an Xbox. In fact, the kid's probably going to see me play games on my PS4, and I'm not going to stop playing the games I want to play just because I also want my kids to have the authentic experience. So they're going to still be exposed to it some way or another, whether it's in the home or out of the home. So I have to wonder how much of, Dad, this is great and all. I really like playing this Mario Sunshine game, but I really would prefer to play Mario Odyssey because it looks so much better and cooler. I wonder how much of the diminishing returns are going to have, towards that whole experience as
Mario Sunshine. That's a good title to talk about.
Okay, let's talk
I just fired it up. Every August I fire it up because I'm nostalgic about the release day when it came out. And I have my GameCube. I was playing it last week. And graphically, awesome. Music, fantastic. Timeless as I'll get out. It's got the summery feel.
Kind of the opposite of Splatoon.
It's bright.
You're cleaning up all the paint
as
opposed to painting everything.
I jumped into a world that required you to climb some fences and do some side jumps. And the platforming was really not up to par at all, and that really removed me from my enjoyment. It kind of took my rose-colored glasses off a little bit, and because it was really fast and quick reaction, which I guess at the time was good because they were trying to make it more smooth than Mario 64 was, which was not as fast or reactive, and I don't know, it just didn't feel the same as what I'd been used to. And I'm currently playing the Crash Bandicoot Insane Trilogy, and I'm playing Sonic Mania, and I'm playing Ratchet and Clank, all on PS4, which are platformers that involve jumping and those types of deals. So I just kind of took me away. It took me aback a little bit. I had to stop and this is hard.
Yeah. Well, I think that in discussing this, we should talk about nostalgia a little bit and consider that, we seem to be painting it as if a game isn't timeless, it's bad. But I don't think that's a problem.
Oh, no, yeah. And I think there's amazing games that are just not timeless.
Yeah, and I think that nostalgia is a pretty cool thing because it can be transferable. Like we said, your nostalgia, if you take Mario 3 and you play it with your son, the value that you have through nostalgia for it can transfer to your son. He can appreciate it because he can say, oh, this is a game that my daddy played when he was a kid. And then something becomes nostalgic for him as well.
Right.
Later in life.
Yeah, it's like when someone comes to you and wants you to see an old classic movie from like the 40s.
Yeah.
You know, and you enjoy it too.
Yeah, because you can, especially if you watch it with someone who can point out all the things that are great about it.
Yep.
So I think that nostalgia really does have a place in the video game culture, and we shouldn't be afraid of that, nor should we be afraid of it in other cultures at large, including, we were just talking about movies and how movies are just rehashed versions of all, gosh, how many times are they going to ruin Transformers? But, the nostalgia for Transformers, let's go back and watch the old Transformers then. Like, if you really are afraid that Michael Bay is ruining Transformers for you, he can't ruin it because there's the good one still exists, you know?
Yeah.
So, nostalgia really can, like I said, it can kind of bring people together, kind of give people perspectives of things that they might not have had on their own, therefore kind of creating a better experience for everyone. And nostalgia really does bind people together. You find someone who played, I find someone who says, well, I didn't really play much Mortal Kombat or Tekken growing up, but I played the heck out of Killer Instinct. I'll be like, that was me too! And then we can bond over the fact that Killer Instinct's not a great fighter in and of itself, but it was the fighter that I played. I spent hours throwing my controller at that screen because I was
angry,
pissed off that I lost a fight for the Glacius.
On a side note, they just came out with a Street Fighter game for Switch, which was like a remake of Street Fighter 2. Mm-hmm. How come there hasn't been like remakes of the original Mortal Kombats or Killer Instinct or Primal Rage or any of those other fighting games?
Yeah.
Like, why is it Street Fighter was the timeless one that they've continued to bring forward?
And it's so interesting to think about how that affects the industry too, because like you said, those titles would probably make a lot of money.
Yeah.
Because nostalgia is very powerful.
Well, there's a new Killer Instinct for Xbox One. Mm-hmm. They've completely, like, it's all 3D and new and looks fun.
But, how much, I don't really know because I'm not a developer, but how much work does it take to remaster a game as opposed to create a new one from scratch?
Right. And
release it to, make nostalgia money? Because nostalgia is very powerful on the wallet as well.
Yeah.
The whole reason why you pre-ordered 5 SNES Classics is entirely because you have buyers lined up who will buy them solely on nostalgia.
Yep.
And Star Fox 2, but that's a whole different thing.
Oh, man. That actually is relevant, though. Mm-hmm. Because look at the 3D nature of Star Fox 1 for Super Nintendo and Star Fox 2. So, I don't know if you knew this, but Star Fox 2 was not actually released because Nintendo felt that PlayStation was coming out, they were developing the N64, the Sega Saturn was out, and they were like looking at the landscape out there with what's happening with 3D games. And because of the new hardware, everything else that was doing 3D looked better than anything the Super Nintendo could do. So they had the Super FX chip, which helped them boost the power, but that was actually on the cartridge itself, not in the console. So they made Star Fox 2, but right before they released it, they're like, this is going to get destroyed and shredded by the critics because everything else, the standard has changed.
Yeah.
And so they never released it. And now that they're bringing it forward, and I've seen footage from this year's Gamescom for Star Fox 2, I'm extremely excited to play it. But it's not timeless. It's not timeless at all. It's like it's got a 12 frame rate. Like it's the colors and textures are flat, and you get the gist of what's going on.
Yeah.
But it's like a silver Onyx, the Pokemon Onyx looking dragon with no eyes. He just has like a shiny mouth, and he hits the R-Wing, and the R-Wing kind of flies away, and the R-Wing just is like 2 blue polygons with like gray.
I always go back and play games like that, and I wonder to myself, how did I ever know what was going on? Because in my head, even Star Fox 64, which is how many years, just a generation later.
Yeah.
Going back and playing that, it's like, wait, what am I seeing? Like, I can't see where anything is because I'm just used to a standard of.
That's a game that is not timeless graphically, but it is timeless mechanically.
Yeah.
It's flawless. The locking on system, it's smooth. The G4 barrel rolls and all the different vehicles you can do and maneuvering in that world is still second nature and awesome.
For sure.
And very smooth.
Yeah. So it's interesting. I wonder, it's hard to it can be hard to argue from the position of saying that nostalgia comes into play, because every game that you mention that is timeless, I'm probably like, oh yeah, I did love that game. The Super Mario Bros. I can't sit here and say, oh my gosh, that was a garbage game, because it's not a garbage game, because my nostalgia, I'm super nostalgic for that game.
Yep.
But I can see what you're saying. When you're playing Mario 3, there's no question as to what you're seeing, and so at least graphically speaking, it does really kind of keeps the timeless feel, because you're able to keep track of what's going on, as opposed to another game of its caliber like Castlevania, which you play and you're kind of like, ooh, everything's just a little fuzzy, There's just not smooth around the edges like we're used to in modern gaming. And
I'm struggling to find something on the PlayStation that was timeless. Because everything in that era, that early 3D era, was just so new and hard to program for, hard to develop, that almost Nintendo nailed it more than anyone else.
Yeah.
For lack of a better... Like, I cannot think of... I wasn't very well versed in Sega Saturn, but I did play like Daytona USA and Virtua Fighter, and they weren't. There was a lot of clipping and a lot of jankiness. And
so, do you think that part of it, if it, would you say that if it pulls you out of the experience, it's not timeless? If something, if some aspect of it,
given
pulls
my
you out
Mario
of the
Sunshine description, I would say that, because I was all into Mario Sunshine until I got to that level and that one specific point where I was trying to like wall jump onto a cage and then like jump onto a very narrow platform, and it was all just like falling apart and not natural. Because at that point, that's when I was like, oh, this game came out in 2002.
Yeah, it makes me think
of 15 years old.
It makes me think of when I was studying theater in college. We talk a lot about that, like what justifies pulling you out of the experience? Because, if you're performers, you want your audience to experience something. Oftentimes, you want to challenge their expectations at the same time, but theater, employs lots of different mechanics in which to do that. Try to, make the audience experience something they haven't experienced before, or challenge their assumptions. But you always want to be careful because you don't want the audience to be pulled out of the experience. But even that's subjective, because a lot of modern audiences... What our expectation is, we're trained by movies to go in, sit down, consume our experience, and then leave. So that's why things like turn off your cell phones or don't talk and shh, that's why we got shushed at that one event that one time, is because it's totally something that modern audiences do. What's funny is, like I said, subjective, because in Shakespeare's time and during his plays, everyone would have been talking, laughing, joking, carrying on, having conversations, drinking beers. There was kind of some prostitution going on up in the darker corners of the globe. But that's the thing. The audiences weren't trained to pay attention. The actors were trained to get their attention. So, for example, one of my favorite examples of this is the line in Romeo and Juliet, "But soft, what light from yonder window break." But soft doesn't mean... He's not describing the light. He's not saying anything about his feelings. But soft, in Elizabethan English, roughly translates in modern English to shut the hell up. He's saying, shut up. He's talking directly to the audience. Yeah. Because the audience, in almost all of Shakespeare's plays, the audience is a character as well. And so he's saying, shut up, everybody. I'm going to talk to you about this girl that's super hot that I like. So it's built into these plays, these moments where you get you grab their attention and you had to fight for it.
Caesar, lend me your ear.
Yep, exactly. He's not just talking to the other characters in the play. He's talking to the audience as a character. So why I bring that up is it's so important to know your audience, know how the audience changes, how our expectations change over time, and how things change over time, because you want to you as an artist, and we talked about this in our first episode, how video games are a form of expressions, and developers in this case are the artists. Developers have to be very aware as to how the game's going to be perceived over time, and yet still try to challenge assumptions regardless, but in a way that, again, it's so important, you still don't want to pull people out of the experience. Yeah. So, if you are like me and like, oh, I love that idea of how theater should be consumed, where people are just, the audience
sounds awesome.
Yeah, I love that idea, but if I were to, write a play, I'd have to find a way to do that isn't so jarring that it pulls people out of the experience.
You'd have to have a movie or a thing to watch that you could still get while you're talking and laughing with your buddies. If I went to the latest movie right now and started that, I would miss the movie. Right. I wouldn't get it because the movie wasn't made for that audience.
Exactly, and movies aren't a medium where you can do that. Theater, on the other hand, has the unique ability to be in you're in a room with a bunch of people, so put that to good use as an artist. Finding a way to put that to good use, but also understanding that modern audiences are at risk of being pulled out of the experience if you do something jarring, and if you do something, too much audience participation can be a bad thing too. Yeah. But I think it applies. The topic applies to this because, again, when you're looking at old video games, if you as a designer don't care and just want to design a game for the time, that's fine. But if you really want your game to be timeless, you have to consider, okay, then what about my game might pull a future audience away from the experience, because that's what we see happening. Each of the examples that we talked about, everything you've mentioned is, Zelda is hard for me to enjoy the experience because the graphics pull me out of it and the mechanics pull me out of it. Whereas opposed to Mario, you're lauding it because you're like, I can still have the same experience that I had as a kid. My son could have the same experience that I had as a kid.
Yeah.
Yes, he might be motivated by nostalgia, but he won't be pulled out of the experience. And that, I think, is what you're saying makes it timeless.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think the audience that developers are making games for, the whole gaming industry has grown up. Mm-hmm. So when we were kids in the 90s, games were only marketed towards teenage boys across the board. Like everything, commercials, PR. You go to E3 back then, it was just like dudes in suits. Like you could tell it was totally business. It had nothing to do because kids weren't there.
Yeah,
and we didn't have the internet today to stream live like press conferences right into our homes, and they weren't televised because they were so much like business. Whenever there was a public-facing video game thing, it was magazine ads, TV commercials. It was just like blah in your face, lightning bolts, like, destructions, explosions. Like 15-year-old boys were eating it up, and from every angle. And like those developers then grew up. The kids they marketed towards all grew up, and how we spend our money on games grew up, and cinematic experiences kind of now take over.
Yeah.
And so if you look at today's video games, they took all of the stuff they learned from those days, and they apply them now with way more dramatic and real-life stories, and they're using newer technology to get more realistic experiences to us, and they're reaching us on new levels.
Yeah.
What's fascinating to me is what are those developers going to do when they're 60 years old and they retire and they're making games for old people. That's never happened. There's never been a video game designed for old people that's not like Brain Age or crossword puzzles and stuff.
Do you think that our generation might eventually just get sick of video games?
The generation before us thought we would.
Yeah, and we
never did.
Yeah.
But in their defense, they looked at video games the way it was projected when they first came out, and that was towards 15-year-old boys. Yeah. So they never saw the evolution of games because they weren't in it like we were. Yeah. So games grew up with us. The developers grew up with us.
Yeah.
And now, I think when I'm retired, I like to think I'm 31 now, so I've played games for 27 years of my life already, so why not another 27, especially if the trend continues. I'm nowhere near bored of them, or I don't feel like they're a childish thing at all.
I think eventually, though, just like any other industry, eventually they're going to suddenly shift, because we expect, they're going to probably keep marketing towards us, and they probably will, because as we get older and enter retirement, we're, the average affluence of people our age will probably be very high, and you make a lot of money in middle age and spend a lot of money. So you're probably right. They probably still will be marketing towards us, but you would also think they would be marketing towards the children of that generation. What I think it will result
that has kind of become a sub-genre now. Like there is still marketing towards teenagers and towards kids, but it's like certain games are made for that market and they're marketed towards them. But I'm talking about as a whole, the entire gaming industry.
I wonder what's going to happen. I think what's going to happen is that we're going to see an explosion of games. We're going to be seeing an explosion.
We're seeing it now.
Well, yeah, we're going to see an explosion of like I said, experiences. I think eventually, like I said in our art episode, I'll probably be hitting this point a lot over the course of our podcast. I think we're going to see a diversification of the types of games to the point where calling them games might not even be a right thing, and I think we'll see that these types of virtual experiences will be marketed towards middle-aged people. These types of experiences will be marketed towards young folk, and these types of experiences that are more like the games of our youth will be marketed towards us old fogies when we're 60s and in retirement. And that's kind of interesting to think about that, because we're gonna when we are old, all the generations will have grown up with video games.
Right, we're the first ones.
Yeah, we're the first.
I wouldn't say we're the first. Like, maybe 50-year-olds. That's probably the ceiling right now, ahead of us. Because there were you're Nintendo 64, I'm Super Nintendo, but there was the guys who were slightly older than me who were Nintendo guys.
And
or Atari guys. Yeah, and so there is like a 15-year
Yeah, but it was just there were so few types of experiences.
And it was so niche.
That it was very niche, yeah.
And so what I'm also fascinated by is the kids out of college now. If you're graduating college right now, you're 22, 21 years old.
22, 23.
So when you were 12, that's 8 years ago, that we're still in the Xbox 360, PS3 time.
Yeah.
They never got retro games unless they were subjected to,
whoa.
right? So their growing up experience, what we're talking about with Nintendo 64 and PlayStation, they're going to have the Xbox 360 and PS3.
They had that with God of War. They had that with Halo 3, whatever. Yeah, that's
and like the Wii, you know, with motion controls kind of being the norm. So their entire video game experience is shifted forward from ours, and they're going to bring to the development realm a whole new way and perspective, worldview than we had. Or the developers are our age. Yeah. We have. So it will change. Everything's going to change, but there's always going to be those, like, until they die, the 60-plus-year-old like leaders, CEOs that are directing gaming until they're all gone. Mm-hmm. So I'm extremely curious to see what gaming is going to look like when we're 60-plus years old. Talking about timelessness in video games, that's probably going to be completely nuked. Yeah. For lack of it, my definition, what we're talking about today, is going to be completely different then, and it's awesome. It's fascinating.
Yeah, and I think that again, that very argument might even indicate that it's not timeless then, right? But again, but nevertheless, there's still going to be 60-year-olds playing Mario 3. Yeah. In 40 years,
and I hope that there'll be 40-year-olds in 40 years playing it.
Yeah. Interesting. Cool. Well, I think that's our discussion for the day. We're wrapping up here at around the 50-minute mark.
All right.
So let's audience, tell us what you think. Let us know if you audience listeners, whatever you're called. Let us know what you think. What do you think?
You know what? We should come up with a fun little tag for everyone who enjoys us, who's like a fan of Penguin and Termite, 80-bit Podsmash, just like. I don't know what to call our audience yet. Like the individual people. Okay, Starbucks calls all their employees partners.
We can call them bits.
Hey, that might be a little degrading. I don't want to be, offensive.
You guys are bits now.
I mean, it's funny, but we should talk about that.
Sure, we'll think about it. Or suggest something to us.
Yeah, what do you guys want to be called?
We want to be identified as such. But anyways.
I think Easy Allies calls all their people allies and Kind of Funny calls all their people best friends. So they have their little tags for their audience. Yeah. And I don't want to just copy everybody else, but by nature that's what I do. And so, without being completely off the tongue, I want to have a name for our audience that we can call and identify them, and they can kind of
well, eventually we'll have something for you. For now, your listeners or bits, whatever. Tell us what you think. What do you think? Do you think that Termite here is right, and that games can be timeless? Do you think that Penguin might be onto something with the idea of nostalgia being a primary motivating factor? Let us know what you think. Let us know if there's anything that you disagree with, anything that you think we're just completely wrong and off base about. We might be objectively, factually incorrect about data. Let us know.
Absolutely.
Find us on Twitter. You can find us on Facebook.
Find us on Reddit.
Comment. Give us ideas. Let us know if you want us to talk about more in depth about something that you heard in this podcast, or if this podcast made you think about something. Let us know, and we'd love to make more episodes for you. So give us ideas. Give us your thoughts. Engage with us. Teach us things.
This has been an 80-bit production with Penguin and Termite.
Yeah, so we'll see you guys later.